Hi everybody, Anna Sabramowitz here, your interactive storytelling coach. How are you doing, my friends? Thank you so much for showing up. This is Wednesday, June 10th. Woo! All right, let's get started. All right, so what am I talking about? Today I'm going to be talking about interactive storytelling, but specifically a case study of one of the projects that my students did, Alvey, and talk through her goals and the goals of the interactive story and some of the things that she uncovered along the way. Now, if that sounds awesome, like she was actually trying to what she was doing, and it's kind of cool. A lot of people have this when they're talking about interactive stories. One of the things that they have trouble connecting is how do you connect a storytelling to software training, right? How does that work? And in this case study, what I'll be doing is showing you how Alvey did exactly that. All right, so stick around. I'm just going to open up my feeds so I know what kind of comments you guys are making and if you have questions. Now, one of the things I'd love to hear from you is, where are you struggling when it comes to interactive storytelling as far as your application? Because one of the things I want to do is make sure that you guys are having you guys are seeing where the clear connection between where the value lies and where the actual implementation is, right? So those things need to kind of happen together. So I want you to let me know when it does, okay? So if you're like, Anna, okay, you've gone through all these case studies and given me examples, but I'm still failing to make the connection, or I'm trying to see how this will work for my specific audience, post that in the comments and say, how will this work for this kind of audiences? And then tell me specifically, what kind of maybe some of the things that are holding this audience back from executing, and not necessarily their beliefs, but maybe where they're making specific mistakes, or maybe where in the process actually breaks for them. So we can talk through that, and I can maybe give you some ideas about how to approach this in the best way. All right, and then also if you just have if you understand the process, and I've been going through quite a few case studies. I think this is number 4 or 5. But what I want you to do is tell me, okay, Anna, but what should I maybe put next? What would be a good fit for after this experience? What is a good ecosystem to actually lead them to, right? And those are a lot of the questions that even come up in our private coaching community. So, by the way, if you want to get awesome at interactive storytelling and even learn a bit more about my process and other examples that are solidly, visually even displayed, go to elearningsecrets.com, and there you'll find my case study. It is intense. It's about 2 hours of awesomeness. So take your time. It's on demand. So it's not like you have to show up and if once it runs, it's gone. But take your time with it, because like I said before, people have messaged me afterwards and said, Anna, I actually looked at the resources and now I'm ready to craft my own interactive story. Some of them jump into our coaching program. Some of them tinker by themselves. So it's totally cool, whatever you want to do, but it's there for you. And if this is something you want to get really good at, don't miss that opportunity. Okay, so go check out that after. And if somebody could put that in the comments for me, elearningsecrets.com, I will appreciate that forever. All right, so as you know, interactive stories aren't meant to teach people things. You can reinforce certain behaviors and certain habits, but you can't, in a 15-minute experience, expect somebody to walk away and be like, I'm super competent. And in fact, if you do any of those silly Likert surveys, which I don't believe in, and if you want to know more about that, I actually have a video about why you should not be using those kinds of surveys to test anything as far as quality of your training. Thank you, Damien. That's awesome. Is because they don't give you any real data and to how to improve your training, but also it's very subjective. So if you have somebody finish your learning experience and they say everything was amazing, I feel amazing, and also I feel super competent, one, they're either delusional, right? And a lot of us, when we do our own self-assessments, we are wrong. And also the other thing could be that, one is that they're delusional. Oh yeah, the other one is that they might just be, it's inaccurate data. Like if at the end of your training, somebody feels really confident, I would say we didn't challenge them enough. And I remember one of my mentors, Sean Flaman, she said, when we finished the training, I had this idea that after the training, people should feel like, oh yeah, like 100% I'm ready to go. And she said, no, 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 no. I want the opposite. I want people to feel like they're not ready, like they have a lot still to learn, and I want them to feel discomfort because I challenge their assumptions and beliefs enough in this training for them to realize that they have a lot more to go, right? This little, even if it was a 2-day session of leadership, you should not be walking out of a 2-day session on leadership thinking you're a great leader, right? There's no freaking way. The only way you're going to get to be a good leader is by actually practicing and applying. So I think the best, and I agree with her now after years in retrospect saying, yeah, I get it. You should feel uncomfortable. You should feel like there's so much more to learn and seeking out more resources. And that's what the interactive stories aim to do. It's not supposed to make you freak out like, oh my God, what am I doing? But it should make you really viscerally aware that there's gaps and you need to address them. And that's basically the point of it, right? So let's talk about this context for Alvey. So when Alvey started working with me, she was really intrigued by this idea of scenarios. Scenarios for her made total sense in the call center aspect. And the people that she's training and she's working with, they have like 3 different systems that they learn in this intense onboarding. And then they have to now take those systems and then interact with customers, right? And so that transition was a challenge, and it was intense, it was intimidating, and all those other things. So for her, she wanted to kind of marry the feelings and emotions attached with being new and dealing with things that are very serious, right? Because the things that major mistakes cost a lot of money. And also now integrating all of this knowledge about these 3 different systems or however many there are that constantly keep updating and changing, and finding accurate information and then making that work with the human interface, right? How do you do that? So let's just talk about some of the beliefs, all right? All right. Thanks, Damien. Oh, look at that. I got 2 Damiens in the house. I love it, and they're talking to each other. That's the best. All right. So let's talk about this. What she did, and this is one of the coolest things, is she discovered all these beliefs that people had about when they come to a call center. And it was kind of cool, as I talked about this yesterday as well. Sometimes, we're looking for people with experience, and I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. We want people with experience. But the thing is, everybody comes in with some kind of experience, expectations, beliefs, biases, everything. You can't undo that. What you can do, though, is understand it's going to be there and tackle it head on, right? You can't be like, oh, when you're coming in here, be a blank slate. Not happening, right? And so one of the things that, especially in a call center when you're dealing with customer service, right, is everybody has different beliefs about what good customer service is. Now, what they believed is that it was a mix, right? Some people believed that you had to be efficient as possible, and that's what the best customer service was. The best customer service was about being efficient and giving the customer the right answer in the shortest possible amount of time. So there's that belief. Then the other one is that service over efficiency is key. So basically, it doesn't matter how long the call takes, as long as it's resolved and the customer gets to talk as long as possible. That is key. It's really about, the duration, and it's really about them feeling taken care of and warm and fuzzy, and let's talk about your garden, where are you from, blah blah blah, right? That those people. If you ever been on the phone, I've been on both ends, so all right, this is a good one. The customer is always right. Now this is fine to believe, right? But it can manifest itself in many different ways, right? And if you don't tackle that head on, as far as how those beliefs are manifested, you are going to have a mess on your hands, because we have a hard enough time communicating with each other while we're being direct, or we think we're being direct. Imagine you trying to say, yeah, we do best customer service, and there's like 50 different people and there's going to be 50 different ideas about how to do that well, right? So she really wanted to discover, how can we tackle this when we say the customer's always right? What does that actually mean for our organization? Because people have different ideas about what that means, right? The number 1 goal is to help the customer solve the problem. They believe this. If somebody calls, the number one thing is for them to solve that problem for the customer. That's not always true. So sometimes when you can't solve the problem for the customer, what do? Well, that creates quite a lot of anxiety for people, and they make mistakes because they're anxious, because they can't solve problems. Some problems are unsolvable, right? But that's what they believe. They're like, if the customer calls in, whatever happens, I'm going to solve that problem. That's priority number one. Nope. So giving bad news is a terrible thing to do. And this just comes from, sometimes, yes, you can't solve the problem, or sometimes you have to give people bad news. And one of the things that she found is that there's this confidence with thinking like, if you are giving people bad news, that means you're giving them bad customer service, right? And there's this equation that happens. Oh, if I give them bad news, they're going to be unhappy and they're going to say I gave them bad customer service. What she wanted to reinforce is they're almost like they're managing all the call center reps. What they're doing is they're not even directly related or directly impacting any of the other things that are happening, right? They're basically sourcing information from these pages and then in their best way possible, trying to understand all this data, all these services, all this stuff, and then helping the customer make a better travel decision or in the moment decision, right? And just because you can't influence all these other systems, the airlines, all these other things that are happening, doesn't mean your customer service is bad. But she knew that through the conversations that she had with practitioners, these were kind of these beliefs that were holding people back and were helping them actually make mistakes on the job. So this is kind of cool because when I talk about the goals of the interactive story, what Alvey did and what I expect everybody to do in our coaching program is she followed directions. Like one of the things that I loved about really some of the most successful students in our group, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to follow directions and not try and reinvent the wheel here. The first time, it's kind of like, sometimes, and this kind of messes you up and kind of doesn't, but let's say you get a recipe for a cake, and the first time you get that recipe, instead of doing the recipe how it should be done, you start making mods to it, right? And some people are like, I'm the queen of mods. I just add this, and then they still give you a review for the recipe. And if it fails, they're angry. And if it doesn't fail, they're happy. But then you can't really tell, if they did the cake because they modified all these things because they thought they should modify all those things. And for me, the principle is if you're starting something the first time, you've never done a recipe before, I do it to a T, see how it works out. And then if I need to modify, I modify because I have a chance, right? But now I know the basic framework for that recipe. And that's what Alvey did. She followed the framework. She picked a model that she knew would work for her context. She picked an interactive story framework that she knew would get people from a place of unaware, kind of unconscious incompetence, right? Cold audience, and get them excited about that journey, which is uncomfortable. You're putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. You're going to have to tell people about things they don't want to hear about. You're going to be under pressure from other people. So let's talk about the goals for her interactive story, okay? So really, the number one thing was that she wanted to create a connection between the software side and the personal side. So they knew all this software inside and out, but then how do you manage that, looking through all those things and actually talking to a human and explaining to them what's going on and getting the accurate information as number one, right? Then reinforcing the balance between efficiency and customer service. So it was really cool. This is very important for them because they have KPIs. They also want to do great customer service, but there's a balance. It's not, it's not a Ritz-Carlton that we're talking about, where everybody has $2,000 to spend to make the customer happy. We're not talking about that kind of thing. We're talking about if there's a queue, there's people waiting, and I want to give you good service, but there's a balance, right? So she wanted to reinforce that. So she actually used a couple of really neat strategies, which is she had, and if you want to learn about these different strategies, I actually talked about these different mechanics in different videos. But she used the contagonist distractor, which is basically two people were giving this character advice and the advice was kind of contradictory at times about what was efficiency and what was good customer service. She also had a karma meter, which basically displayed how they were doing on both of those scores, both of those metrics, right? And she made it visible as a choice because she wanted them to be aware and get maybe some feedback during the call as they were doing it, without actually going explicitly breaking them out of the story and going, this is wrong, or you're taking too long, right? So it was really cool. She, like I said, she took the model, she followed the recipe, and then she modified it to suit her needs, which was so cool. Anyways, so then the other thing that this interactive story she wanted to do is practice giving the worst news possible. So obviously she put them in some seriously uncomfortable situations. And this is great because where else are they, you know, sometimes it might take somebody a couple of months to get really bad news, but they're anticipating it. So one of the things that does is, you know, if the worst case scenario happens to you, and you see the consequences of it, and you're not going to die, right? What's going to happen is somebody might be a little upset or a lot upset, but it's okay. Like if you told the truth and it's accurate and you double checked it, then it's fine. That's a part of a job, right? You're going to tell people things sometimes they don't want to hear, but as long as you emphasize on courtesy and accuracy, it's going to work, right? And it was beautiful how she did it. Her scenarios and the character that she developed were empathetic, but also real, and it was a fantastic experience. And then reinforce some good habits. So listening, it was key that they learned how to listen to the customer. So she did a lot of, she integrated recordings. She also integrated some skills on, you know, how to take really good notes when you have so many calls coming through and you need to keep keep your ideas and all your little tidbits of information organized. How do you do that? So she added this layer on and it was fantastic. And then really the other thing she noticed, which she didn't realize was there, and this came out through the interviews with practitioners, is that there was a lot of social pressure, especially when you're coming on the floor and you're surrounded by people who have been there and they're like savvy as heck. And not only are you already like anxious and your confidence is low, then you're looking around and everybody else is a rock star. And that also creates some doubt and discomfort for you. So she wanted to overcome all those things. And I think she actually succeeded as far as I'm concerned. It was a fantastic experience. It was really cool. A couple of weeks ago, she actually gave us a private walkthrough of her back end, how she built it. And you know, it's really cool. One of the things I always think about is that, you know, we're looking at some of these high-end productions out there in the world, right? You look at Netflix and you see Bandersnatch, and you know it took, obviously, hundreds of people to make it happen, an interactive movie. But then this woman, she's a solo, basically, developer. Obviously, she sourced people. But she's a one-person department. And she took this from soup to nuts, right? And created something magnificent. So soon I'll also be coming out with an interview with Alvey, so you guys will be able to hear about her experience and her development process and some of her ahas and some of her discomforts, so you guys can see if this kind of thing is for you. But like I said, these interactive story case studies are meant for you to decide, hey, is this for me? Is this going to work for my audience? I can't tell you that it will. What I can do is show you examples of things that are working for me and my students, and then what you can do is decide how can I tweak this? How can I take this framework and make it work for my context? Because that's all you're trying to do, right? So, and okay, so we've got some Cheryl saying, I've worked in 3 call centers in the past life, and the customer service beliefs for each place were a bit different. Call handling, okay, so there's a lot of yes. So it depends, right? I worked at a place that actually had not only it was like sometimes you have call centers where people have different levels of experience, and therefore they'll be doing different levels of service. Some people will be doing sales. Some people, like you said, Cheryl, working on commission, right? So there's a lot of difference, right? So one of the things I would love for you to do this for me, right? underneath this video, you've heard this case study. I want you to let me know who's the audience you're trying to influence, right? Where do they struggle? Because one of the things I'd love to do is then brainstorm in the future lives and future sessions, how do you engage these audiences? And is an interactive story a good fit? So let me know underneath the video, just leave a comment, who your audience is, how you're trying to influence them, how you think an interactive story might work. I would love to then tap into those in the next sessions. But for the next couple of weeks, I'll still be doing case studies like this so that you can figure out how you can make this work for your context. Because really, I know that tons of us have, it's easy for us to put a job aid together. It is, right? It's easy for the what. The what to do, right? It's easy, the what, no, it's the how to do it. Yeah, it's easy to figure that out. But one of the things that stumps us is, how do I get somebody to believe that look at that job aid at the right time, right? How do I get somebody to actually realize they've gotten into a pattern where they're no longer checking information? How do I get into that, right? How do I get them to feel discomfort enough that they're going to double check because there's a doubt in their mind? I want to place it there. Sometimes I do. Right? Sometimes I do, especially if your workplace, like a call center, usually the information is dynamic. It's constantly changing. Systems are upgrading, blah, blah, blah. How do I make sure that I'm following the right protocols? And how do you keep people engaged in that discomfort so they continue checking? They don't rely on memory so much. And that might not be for you. That might not be for your audience. Some audiences really should have things memorized, and they'd better, or in the moment they can't just go and check something because it's life or death critical, right? Like if somebody's working on a power line, I don't want them to have doubt in their mind about what they're going to do next. I want them to be very, very, very sure about which wire to link to which wire or which wire to cut, right? So depending on your audience, you're going to be using the interactive story to reinforce different kinds of beliefs and break down other kinds of beliefs and limiting things that hold them back. All right. So I'd love to hear your context. It also gives me an idea, what kind of things you guys are struggling with, and then it'll just help me put together better resources for you. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you like it, share it, subscribe, whatever it is. Next time I go live, you will get this notification, and then it'll also help the algorithm put it in the top of the pile over the videos about how to make a great cheese sandwich, or the puppy that ran away from home and got found years later. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for being here. I know you could be doing 1,000 other things, but you're here learning about this awesome, awesome strategy. And like I said, and like Damien said, go to elearningsecrets.com and you guys will be able to check out that case study that I've got there. It's a doozy, but it's awesome, right? It shows you all these examples and strategies and things that you can implement right away in your very own work. All right, so hope this was helpful. I enjoyed being here. Have a great rest of the day, you guys. Bye.